Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to the channel. And today is Friday, March the 21st, 2025. And this actually came in my email a while ago, but I was in the midst of a move and I wasn't nudged to revisit it until Wednesday. And the moment I began to read it, I knew I was to record it. So this is from AstroButterfly.com, and I'm not always nudged to record and share her work. And I encourage you to go to AstroButterfly.com, sign up for her free email, and you'll be getting all of her blog posts in your email for free every time she posts one. And there will be a link to this article in the Show More section of this video. So Venus retrograde in Aries, the heroine's journey. On March 2nd, 2025, Venus turned retrograde at 10 degrees Aries. Venus resumes her direct motion on April 13th at 24 degrees of Pisces. We have 40 days to go deep inside ourselves. We have 40 days to walk the path of the heroine's journey, facing our desires, confronting our fears, and reclaiming our fire. And it was at that point that I knew I had to record this, because without realizing it, I feel this is the part of the energy that I've been feeling for me personally, partly because Venus is the ruler of my sun sign, Libra. There's no coincidence that Venus is retrograde for exactly 40 days. The number 40 is sacred in nearly every tradition and is usually associated with the fulfillment of promises, but only after a period of testing, trial, and reflection. The purpose of the, quote, trial or retrograde period is to guide us back to our heart, to help us reconnect with our truest desires and help us discover what really matters. Venus, our sister planet, is the third brightest object in the sky after the sun and the moon. She affects us deeply, and when she changes direction, our lives are impacted in profound ways. Venus retrograde periods are especially important because they bring changes of heart and shifts in priorities. This is when we realign with what we truly want and finally make up our mind, or rather our heart, on important matters. The dance of Venus and the Venus 8-year cycle. Venus cycles are unlike any other planetary cycle in the sense that they repeat in the exact same areas of the sky within about 1 degree. In any given century, Venus only goes retrograde in 5 signs: Aries, where it is now, Gemini, Leo, Scorpio, and Capricorn. Venus retrograde cycles repeat every 8 years, or after 5 Venus retrogrades. Every 8 years, Venus returns to the same part of the sky, activating the same area of your natal chart. This means each Venus retrograde echoes the Venus retrogrades from 8 years ago, 16 years ago, 24 years ago, and so on. And it was also at this point that I started feeling into what happened 8 years ago. Well, 8 years ago, my husband and I of 28 and a half years separated. My housemates, the Rushes, moved in with me. Lots of different changes and endings and beginnings were happening for me at that point. Also, what they called the Great American Eclipse happened as well, if you remember. This particular Venus retrograde connects back to the cycles of March, April 2017 and March, April 2009. And in 2009, my mother passed, and I was finally awakened to some truths on the planet as far as the geopolitical corruption is concerned. Venus revisits the same area of the zodiac every 8 years, stirring up familiar themes. Some people, especially those with planets or angles in late Pisces and early Aries, may notice repeating patterns or significant life themes resurfacing. If this is you, it is a powerful time to reflect on what was happening during those previous Venus retrograde periods and notice any parallels. And personally, I feel like that's something that is very useful and helpful for me to sit and reflect back on what was happening in my life when that happened. And what does that mean for me? What can that show me about me? Reflecting on your past Venus retrograde experiences in Aries is a very useful exercise regardless. It can help you spot, oh, I missed a whole paragraph. If something difficult happened during one of the previous Venus retrogrades in Aries or Pisces, that doesn't mean this particular Venus retrograde will play out the same way. There are always other factors at work. Plus, we all grow, evolve, and gain wisdom with age. Reflecting on your past Venus retrograde experiences in Aries is a very useful exercise regardless. It can help you spot relevant themes you may want to pay attention to this time around. Venus retrograde in Aries and Pisces, key dates and aspects. Every Venus retrograde cycle is defined by the Venus-Sun conjunction, which is the turning point when Venus transforms from an evening star into a morning star. This is the key date of the cycle. What makes this particular Venus retrograde cycle special is the transition from Aries back into Pisces. While in Pisces, Venus conjuncts Neptune, the North Node, and Saturn, pointing to a reawakened dream that once felt lost. This is an invitation to rekindle something worth exploring, to remember a whisper your soul once heard, but also, most importantly, to honor the commitment it takes to walk the long road required to bring that dream to life. One promising feature of this Venus retrograde cycle is that it begins with Venus in sextile orb with Jupiter in Gemini. This suggests that the internal work we do now will help us grow and expand in meaningful ways. Venus ends her retrograde journey in a conjunction orb to Saturn. Now, conjunction means together in the sky, right? So it's going to be in the same area as Saturn, reminding us of an important commitment to fully grow into the bold, independent expression of Venus in Aries. We must also root ourselves in something greater than personal desire, a deep commitment to the soul's truth. This is Venus in Pisces conjunct Saturn. It's very interesting that Venus starts her retrograde flirting with Jupiter and ends up holding hands with Saturn. If we were to reduce this entire retrograde to one line, it would be, quote, all this could be yours if you commit to your soul's path and are willing to do the work, end quote. Here are the most important dates of the Venus retrograde in Aries Pisces. March 2nd, 2025, Venus goes retrograde at 10 degrees Aries. March 10th, plus or minus a few days, Venus becomes invisible. March 23rd, Venus conjunct Sun at 2 degrees Aries. Venus is in the heart of the Sun at this point. March 27th, Venus re-enters Pisces. March 28th, Venus conjunct Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces. April 1st, Venus conjunct the North Node at 27 degrees Pisces. Now, I've shared before, the nodes are points in the sky or points in the zodiac that the moon's nodes are pointing to. And the North Node represents what's to come or what's to work on, and the South Node, what has been, past lives, what you're releasing, things like that. If I'm correct. Remember, I'm teaching myself, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Back to AstroButterfly's article here. April 3rd, 2025, plus or minus a few days, Venus becomes visible in the morning sky at 25 degrees. No, that's for Saturn. On April 7th, Venus conjunct Saturn at 25 degrees Pisces. And April 13th, Venus goes direct at 24 degrees Pisces. Venus retrograde brings focus to the 24 degree of Pisces through the 10 degrees of Aries in your Aries area of your chart. If you have planets or angles in this region, you'll feel the impact more strongly. And if you're not sure how to find those in your chart, there's lots of ways to Google how to find that. And also, I'm finding that conversations with AI are very helpful in doing that sort of thing. However, everyone will experience the influence to some degree, especially when Venus forms key aspects with other planets, as shown on the highlighted transit dates. Venus retrograde in Aries, the heroine's journey. All Venus retrogrades are an initiatory journey into the underworld. But when Venus retrogrades in the first sign of the zodiac, with Aries being the sign of the hero, we know we're really stepping into the heart of the heroine's journey. Venus retrograde is often compared to a descent into the underworld. A part of us must die so that a new version of ourselves can emerge. Pardon me. One of the most significant myths connected to Venus retrograde is the Sumerian story of Inanna's descent into the underworld. Inanna, the Sumerian counterpart of Venus, was the goddess of fertility and abundance. The myth of Inanna's descent into the underworld is an allegory of Venus retrograde cycle. The story begins with Inanna deciding to descend into the underworld to visit her sister Ereshkigal. the goddess of the underworld. For the Sumerians, Venus disappearing beneath the horizon symbolized Venus entering the underworld. As Inanna passes through 7 gates, she removes a piece of clothing or jewelry at each one, representing the process of stripping away old identities and releasing attachments. When she finally arrives in the underworld, her sister kills her. This symbolizes the phase when Venus is conjunct the Sun, marking the start of a new Venus cycle. To be reborn, a part of us must die first. Ereshkigal, the goddess of the underworld, represents our shadow side, which must be acknowledged and integrated. Eventually, emissaries from Earth rescue Inanna and bring her back to life. She is resurrected and returns to Earth. This reflects the moment when Venus reappears in the sky, now transformed into a morning star. Inanna's myth is the story of Venus retrograde, when Venus shapeshifts from evening star to morning star, just as Venus is reborn, this time rising in the morning sky, a new version of you will emerge. If we compare Joseph Campbell's hero's journey to Inanna's heroine's journey, we notice clear similarities. The Venus cycle, too, is about a descent into the underworld, followed by a return. But unlike the hero, Inanna doesn't venture out into the open world. She journeys into the metaphorical underworld. When Venus goes retrograde, it's not the outside world we're called to conquer, it's ourselves. Inanna, the queen of earth and heaven, and Ereshkigal, the queen of the dark underworld, represent the two aspects of the feminine psyche. The journey to reintegration is not fought on the outside, but within ourselves. There's no dragon to slay. It's our own shadow we must integrate. It's our own dark side we are asked to meet with compassion. It is our unexpressed feelings and desires that we're invited to honor. Venus retrograde is a journey to our heart. But how do we find the way there? Venus retrograde in Aries, 40 days of heart searching. We do what Inanna has done. We look inside. Inanna spent 40 days on her journey to the underworld and back. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert to overcome his doubt. Buddha fasted and meditated for 40 days before reaching Samadhi. All these journeys have one thing in common: deep reflection and introspection. When Venus is retrograde, we're invited to pause and look within. What truly matters to you? What do you really want? Then go one layer deeper. Listen to your Aries inner warrior and heroine. Where have you been feeling unworthy or not enough? Where have you been told your emotions are too much, your fire too intense? Where do you draw the line? What is non-negotiable? In what ways do you need to rise up and show the world who you really are? Aries is our instinctual knowledge of who we are beneath the noise. Aries is deeply attuned to oneself, the true self without the mask. Your Aries inner goddess is not the Barbie doll. She's not the devoted partner. She's not the version of you the world told you to be. Venus retrograde in Aries will remind you of the raw, unapologetic beauty of your true self. That is what matters. That is your blueprint. Everything else can be built from this authentic, owned, and fully embraced foundation. And as Venus moves through the second half of its cycle, conjuncting Neptune, the North Node, and Saturn, you'll find that the longing of your heart doesn't just drift into the clouds. It becomes the compass that leads you exactly where you're meant to go. Wow. I hope you see why I had to. This meant a lot to me. And what was so fascinating is I could see very clearly that it really is part of what I'm moving through in these moments of now. I hope you feel that this was helpful to you. It certainly was to me. And I highly encourage you to go to astrobutterfly.com and sign up for her free email. Costs you nothing. But also look around on her site because there's lots to get involved with there. She does seminars, she does webinars, she has a couple of different master classes kind of things that she does. And yeah, take a look around and take advantage of the things that she has to offer there if you can, if you find yourself so drawn. Well, that's it for this one. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you. It really truly is just a matter of perspective and your perception of the perspective you are holding in that moment. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.